Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, the place to be for practical spirituality for daily living. Today I have with me Jess Carlson. She is an intuitive coach, blogger, tarot maven, and magical mentor. She works with women who are looking for spiritual answers to their life's problems, helping them learn to use magic, ritual, and spiritual practice to heal and create the life they want through one-on-one coaching and intuitive tarot and oracle readings. But before we get started, here's a word from our sponsor, The Goddess Next Door. Are you fed up with dating guys who aren't ready to settle down, or you're just tired of attracting the same type of guy who seems great at first, but always ends up in a dead-end relationship? Well, in 30 days, the Love Spark program will help you become irresistibly magnetic so you can attract your soulmate once and for all. To learn how you can become irresistible to the man of your dreams, visit lovesparked.com or go to the podcast page at thegoddessnextdoor.com and click on the Love Spark banner. Thanks for listening. Hello, Jess. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about practical modern magic. So welcome.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, so excited. You know, I have to just share this little story. It's not really a story that I'm going to share, but when I was in college, I had this obsession with this one woman store, and it was very magical, and it was my first place where I got a deck of tarot cards, and I just remembered there was something about this place that was just so it completely drew me in, and I wanted to go there just practically every day. And it was just like this hole in the wall. So that's why I'm really thrilled to talk with you, because I think magic can get a bad rap sometimes. And so I really want to dive in and talk about your perspective on magic and how we can use it in our life in a light and loving way. Yeah. So how did you get into magic?
It was something that happened as a result of my mother forcing me to go to the library as a child.
Yeah.
When my sister and I were little, my mom made us go to the library every week and take out books, and I was never terribly interested in reading stories. I wasn't interested in fiction, and it just kind of, my imagination was good enough. I didn't need anyone else telling me, what to be imagining. So I found myself more interested in learning. I wanted to learn some new things if I was going to be reading. So I was drawn to the nonfiction section of the library. And so when I was probably around 7 or 8, I found a book on magic and witches and occult things aimed at, it sounds kind of like, someone's out there trying to snare children,
yeah.
but written for young teens. And my reading comprehension was always way higher. And I, again, thanks to my mom and forcing me to go to the library.
Yeah.
So I was really drawn to that stuff. And I got a book. One of the first ones had tarot cards and, all that kind of stuff in it. And I was just instantly sucked in. And I'm a very visual person, and so the tarot cards drew me in immediately. I was into them instantly, and as soon as I got that book, read about the tarot cards, and read about that stuff, in the summertime, I spent the summers during the day with my grandmother, and I would go to her house and take all of her bridge cards and try and pretend like they were tarot cards.
Oh, yeah.
Which drove her crazy. And she eventually, when I was about 10, bought me a deck of tarot cards just so I would stop messing with her stuff. So for me, it was really just a weird curiosity because of a book that then just grew into what I would never have imagined would become a whole lifetime of work. And I also think, too, that growing up in New England, I grew up in Connecticut. I was a couple hours away from Salem, Massachusetts. And so, we took field trips there, and you hear, and actually Connecticut is where the first witchcraft trial took place. It wasn't in, everyone thinks, the Salem witch trials. It actually was in Connecticut, was where it started. So you heard all about that. And so that curiosity, as soon as I heard the word witches, I'm like, oh wait, I know about that stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
So it was just something that drew me in instantly when I found it.
Yeah. What's the energy like there?
Salem is, I actually just lived there for about a year and a half, a couple of years ago. And people kind of have a weird perception of Salem because people today who are Wiccan or pagan, modern pagans, kind of think that Salem's sort of like the Mecca for magical practitioners, but everyone kind of forgets it's a tourist town. It's very much a giant tourist trap. There are a bazillion magical shops and witchcraft focused things, but if you've seen one shop, you've mostly seen them all. If you've gone to one museum, you've seen them all because the history didn't change when you walk down the street and turn the corner. So it's an interesting energy. It's a lot of, I really enjoyed my time there and I would go back, but it's also very draining in a lot of ways because it's a lot of very big personalities and it's very showy and it's much more touristy than it's not what people really, I think, are expecting when they go, oh, I'm going to go to Salem. It's going to be this magical experience. And then people go and they're kind of let down because it's not this spiritual thing. It's commerce and, showy showmanship. So, but it's a fun place to go. It's nice.
Cool. That kind of reminds me of when I went to Sedona the very first time. I was so surprised at how commercial it had become. I was like, wow, I was expecting very spiritual and earthy. And here it's like reminded of me of the local beach town.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like when I came out to San Diego the first time, when I moved out here, I was expecting San Diego to be like Venice, and it wasn't like that at all. And it's very, because San Diego is a military town, it's very conservative. And I was just like, what am I doing here? This is not what I was signing up for, I thought. So, yeah, I think that it's with anything. I think when we put our expectations, way too high and we let our, imaginations take over too much and we don't give that leeway for reality to, have a space, we end up a little let down. So,
yeah. So let's talk about practical magic. What does that mean for you?
For me, it means things that are easy to do, that don't require a lot of ritual and a lot of prep and a lot of weird supplies that you have to order weeks in advance from some website in another country. It's things that are kind of more aligned with what people would consider folk magic. Things that are, sometimes you hear people call some of that stuff like old wives' tales and, mainly things that people might consider superstitions. But a lot of it is actually, it's old magic that goes back centuries through many cultures. People often think when they hear witchcraft, they think of European magic because that's usually the forefront of what we read or see in books and in movies and things. But I tend to be personally more drawn toward, and I didn't know this at the time when I found it when I was like 10 years old. I didn't realize that's what it was, but I'm more drawn towards American hoodoo practices. Which are, rooted in a combination of European, African American, and Native American magic. And it's a very uniquely American, kind of melding pot type of magic. Although having studied with teachers like Janet Farrar and Lori Cabot, I've spent a lot of time in the European magic as well, which is always very ritualized. There's a lot of tools, a lot of steps, and I just want to sit down and do it and be done. I don't want to have to spend. It comes down to what's sustainable. It's not sustainable for people to do these big rituals on a daily basis, but people want magic on a daily basis. And then you kind of feel like, oh, well, I can't do it if I can't cast a circle and call all these spirits and all these things. And it's, it's showing people how to use crystals and herbs, and then the things that people don't think about when they think magic: intention, visualization, meditation, all of these things that you can do, like in 5-10 minute chunks throughout your day that can make a huge difference in your life. If you believe that that is going to work for you, belief is such a huge part of any kind of magical practice, whether it is big and showy and, with a huge ritual, or if it's just sitting down with a crystal and meditating for 5 minutes. If you believe that what you're doing is going to be enough and it's going to work for you, then you're good. But if you feel like, oh, this isn't going to be enough for me, then it's not. So that's why I always tell my clients, you tell me what you think is good for you. Like, do you want a lot of pageantry? Because if you do, I can give it to you. But if you don't, I'm going to show you how to make this really simple too. It's really everyone's different, and even for myself, I do have times where I want the pageantry. Like we've got, Samhain's going to be coming up, the Halloween Sabbath, and I love pageantry at Samhain. For me, Samhain requires pageantry, but, other times of year don't. The full moons don't. Like, the daily stuff doesn't need it, but certain things do for me. So I bring it out when I need it, but most of the time I keep it simple.
Yeah. So for people that aren't really familiar with magic and what you're saying about, like I know what Samhain is, so if you want to just briefly explain what that is, but also when you talk about pageantry, are you talking like what are some examples of what that looks like?
For me, when I talk about pageantry in ritual, it's things like casting circles, which are a form of creating protection around the space, as opposed to other forms of creating sacred space where you might just smudge it with sage or just visualize that everything is, visualize white light and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff, having to do invocations to deities and calling certain spirits in before you can even start lighting a candle, the kind of stuff that just like, there's so many steps you have to go through before you can get to the real heart of why you're even there. I was in a tradition for about 3 years that was so, like, every ritual took an hour and a half, but the magic part in it only took about 10 minutes because we had so many steps to go through before you could, before it was okay to get to the actual working part. Wow. And then the working part really doesn't take that long for most situations. It just depends on what you're doing. And then the thing with all of that is if you've cast a circle and you've called quarters and you've invoked deities and you've called guardians and angels and all this stuff, then you do your work. Now you have to bid farewell to all those elements and deities and angels and spirits, and then you have to release the circle. So it's like if you had to do it to start to get to the magic, then you're going to undo it when you're done. And next thing you know, it's 2 hours later and you're exhausted because there's a lot of energy goes into that work.
Yeah.
So
well, I love that you are really making it very practical, which is fantastic because I'm with you on, I love the pageantry stuff. I love all of the ceremonial and ritualistic stuff that you can bring in but like you said, to actually use that takes up a lot of time and energy and isn't very practical. It's like you want to do that for certain fun or certain occasions or something that you really want to bring it all in. And so, I love that you are bringing it down to that very practical, simple level for people. So that's awesome.
I think a lot of people forget, and I think this is just because there's a lot of weird like history, like made up history that's out there around so much of what we see now with magic. And people have this perception that all of those steps are necessary and that this is how it's always been done, when that's not at all true. The more practical, just throwing herbs in a fire and spending 5 minutes looking at the flames is more what people did at one time before somebody came along with more of a alchemist perception kind of, and started adding all the energy work and everything, which is wonderful and beautiful in its own way. If it's for you, that's awesome. Great. Go for it. But when you just want to get down to the nitty gritty of what needs to be done, then, you don't need all of that stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you said when you do the larger stuff, there's just a very small period of time that you're actually doing the magic. So how would you describe the magic itself? Like what makes magic or what denotes magic? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah. It's kind of to me, it's sort of a twofold process. You have your intention of what your goal is, what you want to manifest or change or remove in some cases, or whatever it is that you want your goal to be. And then you follow up with like aligned actions using specific tools. Those tools have energies in them because everything is energy. So the candle color has an energy and a vibration. So you pick a specific candle color to use. The herbs have energy in their own spirit. And so you pick the spirit of the energy or of the herbs or the crystals or, whatever natural elements you want to bring in. And so it's like you don't have to call in a whole bunch of spirits, because I know for some people that just freaks them out. Like the thought of invoking anything freaks them out, which is totally understandable. It should be something that should kind of be, I don't want to say held in a fearful way, but it should be approached with trepidation when you haven't done it before.
Right.
You should just be grabbing a book and going, oh, it says I should call this deity, and start calling in deities that you don't know anything about. I've been in rituals where people have done things like that and things have gone horribly awry. So altars catch fire, people get sick. Like when you are, these things are very real, and it may be that specific deity, it's the energy that you're calling, not necessarily a specific person, so to speak.
Right,
it's energy, and that energy can be really strong, and if you don't know how to use it, it can screw your whole day. So it's really, I think, when you sit down and you use, like, instead, work with the spirits and the energies of the herbs, the crystals, the tools that you want to use, and you align all of that with your intention, and then you do the actual physical magic, which is going to either be like lighting a candle or making a honey jar or whatever it might be that you're going to do as your process. It all just becomes a way of taking all of those energies and bringing them together, tied with your intention, and then sending it out into the universe to do its thing. But then comes the tricky part, because now you have to live as if. You have to live in alignment with your intention. So it's like you can't do a magical working to get a job and then sit on the couch and watch, Maury Povich all day and expect that someone's going to call you and offer you a job. You got to go out there and do your thing. So the whole point is that magic helps open doors. It helps realign energies and bring things into your energetic field that give you opportunity. It doesn't make it happen for you. It brings you closer to those opportunities, and then you have to actually walk through the door.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I think that's so important with manifestation in general. I think that there is that misperception that we can just sit and intend it and think about it and then sit and wait. And yeah.
It was funny. I was watching, my husband and I watch that show Orange is the New Black on Netflix. And so we were watching it. We were watching an episode, and there was an episode where there was a flashback of one of the characters where before she was in prison, she owned a bodega, and a guy had come in and got a candle from her to get a job, and he burns the candle down, and he comes in with the burned down candle all angry at her and says, you told me to burn this candle down with my job application, and then I would get a job, and I didn't get the job. And she's like, well, did you bring in the application? And he's like, well, you didn't tell me I had to do that. And I burst out, and I lost it. My husband's looking at me like, why is that so funny? I'm like, you have no idea how many times things like that have happened to me.
Yeah.
People telling me, well, I didn't know I had to go out and actually apply for the job or ask the person out on the date or, whatever. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Well, and I think that's a great point. I think that speaks to that you have to be careful what you ask for. Like, you really have to be ready for what it is you're asking for. If you're saying, oh, I'm ready to meet, Mr. Right or my soulmate. If you're not ready, then he could come in and you'd miss him and it wouldn't work.
Exactly. Or you end up, because I've seen people do that all the time. Like, I really want to meet the right person. I'm really ready. Well, how ready are you? Like, when you say ready, Are you just ready for a serious relationship? Are you ready to get married? Are you ready to have children? And then they don't define it. And they just say, well, I'm just ready to meet the one. And then they do. And that person wants more than they're really prepared for. And now they're in this horrible relationship, and now they're all angry. Like, I did this work and it was supposed to bring me the right person, and he's not the right person because he wants more than me. You didn't know what you wanted.
Exactly.
You have to be clear on what you want before the universe or, any spirit or deity that you work with is going to bring you what you really want. If you can't define it, how can you just expect the universe is going to be able to define it for you? You have to know what you want and be ready for it. So
exactly. Yeah. So I'm wondering if you personally, if there was a time in your life that you found that magic really helped you. Was there like a time that you can think of that stands out for you?
There's a very defining moment. There are a few, but there's a very defining moment for me. I had, in my early to mid 20s, I had a very bad stretch of time. I had a growing alcohol problem. I had a drug problem that was getting to become a problem. Didn't think it was a problem at the time. And I was in a string of awful relationships that were emotionally abusive and just really bad. And I was in this really dark place where I was allowing these things to happen. I was fine with them happening because I felt like, oh, well, I get the attention, and then it turns out really awful, and it's not the attention I want. I can drink or take drugs to make me feel better, and then it just becomes a big cycle. And so that happened for a few years, and I tried being in therapy, and that didn't work. And I had one really, really awful night where I was trying to get this guy I'd been seeing to just email me or text me or call me because we hadn't spoken in 2 days, and I was getting really freaked out, as 23, 24-year-old girls do. And I finally got to the point where I was sending like suicidal sounding text messages, just trying to get an answer. And I was drunk, and it was 3:00 in the morning. It was just an awful scene. And when he finally did respond to me and was basically like, look, you just need to stop, and we need to just, we're not speaking for a reason. And I just lost it. Passed out and woke up the next morning and realized, it was a weird moment where it was just like, what are you doing? You know exactly the things that you can do to fix all of this and to change the bad relationships and to get out of this bad spiral. Why are you allowing the spiral to happen? And why are you just falling down it like you have no way to stop it? And that ended up becoming the moment where I said, all right, well, I'm going to go meditate. And so that was how it started, was meditating in. Because I'd been working magic. I had done some, and, let me tell you, when I talk about, careful what you wish for. Yeah. I had done some really, in those couple of years, did some really awful, what I would definitely consider black magic. Oh, yeah. on some exes and some exes' new girlfriends and things like that all worked out beautifully at the moment. And then later was just like, oh, that was just the worst thing in the world for me to do, because it just added to the spiral that I ended up in. Bad karma. Yeah, very bad karma. And so I started with just meditating, and every day I was meditating for just like 5 minutes. And then I started doing, after about a couple of weeks, I started doing, because I started feeling and seeing the fog kind of finally lift just from doing the meditation. And then I started doing active healing work for myself. Mostly doing candle magic because that's my preference. I'm an Aries, so I tend to be more drawn to doing firework. I like burning things.
Me too. I love having candles like burning all the time.
Yeah, it drives my husband nuts. He's like, really, could you please not forget to put those candles out when you go to bed? Because they're always everywhere. Yeah. But yeah, I like to do candle magic and anything that involves fire. So I was doing a lot of candle magic. I started doing burning ceremonies to release stuff. So I was burning pictures of like everyone I'd known in the last like 4 years. And just trying to get rid of, clear out whatever I knew was adding to this like really negative space I was in, and just getting rid of it all. And it ended up that within about 2 months or so, I was away from all of the really negative stuff. I was still drinking. I wasn't doing drugs anymore, but I was still drinking, and it took a while for me to kind of get the drinking to sort of peter out. And I kind of like, I have some addictive things just in my nature, I think. So that was a tough one for me to finally let go of. But it had to do with just finally saying, I need to use my magic and use to shield me from the people that drive me to drink and to get me away from the places that bring those things into my life. And so eventually, within about 6 to 8 months, I would say, after that really awful night, it was like a 360. And I was back to where I was for a few days. And then I'm like, okay, this is no good. Let's bring it back. And then I was fine. So it took a little relapse for me to finally go, you know what, bring that magic back. It worked before.
Yeah.
You know.
Cool. So I always like to leave with something practical that people can start using right away. So, we've talked a few times about relationships and love. So I'm wondering, is there a little practical magic thing that you can offer to help people with their love life?
Yes.
Awesome.
One of my favorite things when it comes to love is working, and actually this is what I'm working on doing a class on right now about, is using sugar and using honey and using sweet things to, whether it's because you're in a new relationship that's just kind of getting its bearings, or if you've been in a relationship for a while, or you've been married for a while and things have kind of started to peter out and you want to bring the sweetness back into it. One of my favorite things, it's really simple to do, is doing a sugar scrub in the shower.
Nice.
And it's easy enough to make. You can buy sugar scrubs, in boutique stores, but they're so freaking expensive for really no reason. You can make it at home really easily with a half a cup of, you can use either white or brown sugar, but coarse sugar, and then add, you can use olive oil if that's all you have, but if you can get jojoba oil or sweet almond oil at the, at a health food store, that's perfect. And you just add it until you get a pasty mixture. And then if you want to add some spice into the relationship, add some clove powder or a little clove oil. Do not ever use cinnamon because it burns the skin, but clove is a little gentler. And then, or you can just use the sugar, just white or brown sugar. Brown sugar for a little more sweet, a little more sweetness. And then just go in the shower and you just scrub from, because you want to bring it up into your life. You want to scrub from your feet and your legs up the body.
Okay.
That's the motion of attraction when you're doing cleansing work.
Nice.
So you scrub from, up, and then you're done. And then you just rinse it off and away you go. That's an awesome thing to do before you're going out on a date or going somewhere where you think you might meet somebody, or if someone's like, we're going to go to this party and I know someone I want you to meet, we'll do that before you go.
Yeah, awesome.
That's a nice thing to do.
Well, that's a great tip about, moving upward, because I didn't realize that was the motion of attraction.
Yeah, when you want to attract, you go up, but if you want to cleanse yourself of something and remove something, you go downward. So you start at the head and you work down to your feet, and you never switch it up. If you switch it up in the middle, you end up screwing up the flow. So it's just flow. It's flow down if you want to release, flow up if you want to attract.
Okay, I have to ask this because I think I'm always going down. So clearly I'm perfectly clean and I've let go of everything I can let go of. But now I'm curious. So if I want to bring more money in and attract more money, what scent should I be bringing up?
Basil is perfect for that.
Okay.
Because basil's easy enough to get. My preferred thing for money is cinquefoil or five-finger grass, but that's a little bit, you can't get that at the local grocery store. But basil you can. Basil is really great for money. Cinnamon is great for money too, but it'll burn the skin. I mean, you can do a little, if you want to attract money, you can use a little cinnamon oil to dab the corners of your existing bills that you have in your wallet, and as you do it, just say "return to me tenfold" with each dab on the corner. And then when the time comes for you to spend that money, however you're going to spend it, do it with the intention. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to tell the person, "Here, this is going to come back to me tenfold." Yeah. But spend it with the intention that it will return to you tenfold, and spend it with graciousness and gratitude, because even if it's $1, you should be grateful that you even have that dollar to spend. Yep. And so just know, with gratitude, I'm spending this money and it will return to me tenfold. And then you'll see money come back to you.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. I can't wait to try that. Yay. Well, and what's funny, well, it's not funny, haha, but it's very cool that today's sponsor actually does some great sugar scrubs. So that's all in alignment. So I think that, yeah, perfect. All right. So let's, I'm going to wrap us up for today. So thank you, Jess, for joining me. I had, oh my gosh, so much fun talking with you. This was just, I'm like feeling all warm and, fun inside.
Yay!
Yay! My spirit is sparkling.
Excellent.
So if you guys would like to learn more about Jess, how you can work with her and read her blog, be sure to visit her at jesscarlson.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for her weekly emails where she shares more practical magic and spiritual tips. You guys, her website is absolutely gorgeous. You're going to have so much fun there. So you'll also get her popular Spiritual Toolbox ebook for free and get a crash course in everything from meditation and mantras to crystals and tarot. So, all right. Well, again, thank you, Jess, for joining me today. And thanks, everyone, for listening to the Awakened Goddess Show. If you had as much fun as we did, make sure to subscribe on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and review. And until next time, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.